See how this microphone goes here.
Like you said,
Well, first, just want to thank everybody for listening to me ramble for the next 20 minutes. I had planned on filling 45, but that's a big obligation for somebody. This is their first speaking since Com 110 in 2018. So, yeah, just want to thank Katie for having me. I always love getting out and sharing my story, and then obviously helping entrepreneurs as well. There's not a lot of answers if you go out and look for them. So anytime I can provide any bits and pieces that are hopefully helpful, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, just want to first thank Pride of Dakota too. Very instrumental in us being where we are. We started through selling on a website, and then our first introduction to Pride of Dakota, we're like, hey man, we might have something here. Keep going with this. So we're going to keep doing those as long as we are in business. So my name is Zach Willis. I was born and raised in Fargo. I'm a 2017 West Fargo High grad, which always makes it a little hairy for me to come out to Bismarck. Century knocked us out of the playoffs twice in high school, so get a little fuzzy walking out this way. But I went to NDSU on a football scholarship. Started as a pre-physical therapy major, figured out I was bad at science, went into industrial engineering, realized I was bad at math, and ended up with a marketing degree. So here we are. I started Big Deck in May of 2020 with my dad and stepmom out of our garage. Our only initial funding was our stimulus checks. We had time and an extra $2,500 a piece and said, hey, let's start this thing up. My dad had been making the sauces for 10 plus years at that point, and we decided to just start doing it. I finally pushed them. We didn't have a website, didn't have a Facebook, didn't have any way to take orders. We were on bar napkins writing down what people were texting us they wanted to order. So my entire time I have worked backwards of how I was supposed to, and that's what I'm hoping I can provide some insight on here. So I ran it with my dad while I was playing football and going to school until I graduated in May of 2021, where it was still part-time, and I started selling advertising at Spotlight Media in Fargo for 7 months. That's a tough place to cut your teeth. Selling is never fun anyway, but when it's advertising, they always tell you the worst thing they can say is no, until you're calling an auto body shop at 9 in the morning and they're telling you that they'll find you and come break your phone if you call them again. So you learn how to cut your teeth and take the answer no when you're selling advertising, which is never fun. But in December of 2021, my dad gifted me the entire business, gave me full equity control, and I started running it full time in January of 2022 with my fiance, Julia. We're now in our third year running it full time, going on 4 years of business. So pretty cool, pretty proud of that. I want to share 4 main lessons I learned. Like I said, I'm a college athlete, so I'm full of coach speak and cliches, and that's what a lot of this is, but I'm hoping I give something tangible that you can kind of apply to your business, no matter what step you're in. Unfortunately, I'm stubborn, so these main 4 lessons were learned after something bad happened to me, and that's the only way I learn is when life hits me with a hammer over the head and says, hey, listen to this. The first lesson is to do the work without the expectation of immediate results. That's hard. I did 4 years of college football doing the same work the starters did without any of the glory on Saturdays, going in and getting to have my name in the paper, being in the photo shoots, all that stuff. But what that taught me and what I apply to business now is that no matter if there's not, now we think in terms of revenue, work, and hopefully to see some monetary return in exchange, but you have to know that these little bits and pieces that you're putting together are going to come out to be worth it in the end. Look at me moving the note cards too fast. And obviously being an NDSU football player put me in a position with a lot of privilege that I'm thankful that I had an immediate fan base to reach out to when we first started. I'm very thankful for that, but that work, when things get tough in business, it's easier to remember, like, hey, you did this for 4 years, we can stick this out, it'll be all right. Let's see here. Yes. It taught me to be comfortable in the tough times, like I mentioned. When we get to points with the business where there's no money, great, been there before. I was a college kid and we didn't grow up with much when I was a kid, so I'm fine with that. And when no one knows us, that's great. I'm going to work until they do. That's all you have to do. You just have to trust that it's going to be worth it at the end. To be clear, I don't think we're at any point where I'd say I'm comfortable or I've made it, but I can put a roof over my head selling barbecue sauce, and that's pretty cool to me. Our motto starting was FIO, figure it out. Steps ahead aren't always clear, and you can search as hard as you want for the answer, but they're not there. You just have to know, and you won't know until you do it, which is not a fun answer when you're confused about what to do next. Here's my cliches. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Trust the work and don't ever expect immediate results. Because I'm uncomfortable a lot, including right now. Here we are, getting comfortable. Lesson number 2 is selling smart. When I first started, I just wanted to push as hard as I could to get in as many places as possible. And sales drive the growth, but don't just sell to sell. Be intentional in finding your core market and find out as much as you possibly can about them. Because then you know how to market, you know where to put it, you know when they'll buy it, you know why they'll buy it, you'll know what they buy. Door count is great, but if it's not selling, if it's not moving off the shelves, that's not good for anybody. You know, if a vendor relationship is ruined right away because they bring you on and nothing moves, well, then that relationship goes away. I think the thing I get asked most, which is funny to me that people ask me, I don't know really what I'm doing either, but I get reached out to a lot about the sales side of it. That's why I kind of wanted to hammer this. The hard part about selling is that sometimes the most simple one is the correct one, and you just have to go out and do it, pound the pavement, make the cold call. It's the unfun parts of it that you have to do. Like I said, hopefully if you're talking to like a grocery manager, they're a little more kind than Paul's Auto Body in Fargo, but that's a made-up business, I don't know. There's no secret membership to sell. You just have to do the work, get out, find the right person to be in touch with, and find out how to get your stuff in their store. I think in sales too, identifying a niche. When you go and talk to like brokers, national buyers, you hear about like being a revolutionary and what's different. Like in my market, I don't know if anybody has seen the Basha barbecue sauce, the Japanese barbecue sauce. That is something completely new, not new to market, but like really blew up because they're doing something very different compared to everybody else. That's hard because not all of us have a revolutionary product. I just make really good barbecue sauce. That's not changing the world. But you have to know what sets you apart and what makes you unique. For us, I know they're getting a good product, and I'm extremely confident in that. They're getting exceptional customer service and a loyal following. We have pretty good reach around the country that if we're in anywhere in certain spots. I just got a picture from somebody who's at a butcher shop in Arizona that carried our stuff, and that's so surreal to me that like people we know through this are finding our stuff all across the country. And that leads me to my next point. Niche can be where you place yourself, rather than just your product yourself or your brand. But the biggest example I think of is like Dot's Pretzels. Obviously, she is kind of the success story in the CPG world from North Dakota as of late. But was killing it in the grocery market, obviously, the traditional line places that people buy their pretzels. But how big was her getting into hardware stores and liquor stores and places you don't, it's an interruption to a person's normal purchase pattern. They're going through the liquor store. Hey, those pretzels look good, let me grab that. How good was that for her business? I'd be willing to bet it was pretty huge in her development. So where can you put yourself that your competition isn't? Maybe it's national. Like some, I think of hardware stores now, the barbecue sections are so prominent in almost every hardware store you go to. But a lot of that is national brands. You see Sweet Baby Ray's or Bosch, like I mentioned, who's a giant, private equity baby now. Good for them, they're killing it. But how many of my local competitors here are working at these other stores rather than mainline traditional grocery stores? And that's part of the intentionality of it too. Look at me, I'm not selling a health product. It's not, super low calorie, low sugar. So it doesn't make sense for me to go into a natural grocer and try to sell it there or somewhere where you buy a health food. It doesn't make sense for me to go to a distributor that works with convenience stores. When was the last time you went to a gas station to buy barbecue sauce? And so just being intentional rather than just racking up those vendor accounts, make them count in the ones that you do choose to work with. like I said, there's no need to be world changing, but you have to know what sets you apart from your competition. Sales fuel the engine, but you have to steer it along the way. Lesson number 3, lean on your resources. You got a bunch of them here today. First one is the Department of Health. They will help you, contrary to popular belief. You hear an inspector, and if you're like me, my skin starts to crawl. What's the inspector doing? It's scary. But I annoyed those guys. I called Mike Lee like 5 times a day when we're moving to our own facility. I was texting our inspector, I'm like, hey, what do I need? And he just got so tired of it, he's like, I'll just show up and show you what you need. All right, that's what I was looking for the entire time. But lean on it. There's a lot of questions and a lot of red tape that are hard to answer. Have them answer it for you. Don't just try to, I was a Google master, trying to Google my way through these things. North Dakota, what do I have to have behind my sinks? You're not gonna find anything, so just ask them. Next big resource that we used was NDSU extensions. I'm not sure what other universities or counties around the state have them, but I know the extensions team and their offices are super easy to work with remotely. They did all of our nutrition labels, which was huge for us, obviously necessary to go to market to have accurate nutrition labels good to go so the consumer is educated in what they're going into. But they also have food entrepreneurship modules that are great and kind of break down step by step what you need to do. The SBDC, Paul, again, another guy that I just badgered constantly, but he got us our projections and was instrumental in us getting our first 2 batches of funding through our expansion. Like I said, I'm bad at math. I'm not going to sit down and crunch numbers and look at an Excel sheet because I'm not going to get anything done anyway. So you have to lean on those people that are good at those things. And for that, being a free resource is incredibly valuable. The next one is using your community for feedback. When you start a business, family and friends are great, but sometimes they're too nice, especially up here. My example is when we first brought our seasonings to market, yeah, friends and family loved it, they loved trying it, use it, yeah, it tastes awesome, you should do it. And then it started getting into strangers' hands in Fargo that we knew, and we found out they were almost inedible, they were so spicy. And it's like, okay, that would have been good to know before we started launching this. Had to cut out half the spice, basically. So pick and choose. Obviously, criticism and feedback are 2 different things. The feedback, sometimes you have to implement, even if you think it's or not what you think is best for your company. But like I said, the criticism part is what was hard for me because it's like differentiating that. If I wouldn't take your advice on something, I don't want to take your criticism, truthfully, because there's a lot of bad actors and people who act strangely when you're trying to go after something yourself. Ask other business owners. Obviously, we're in a great network here right now. It's in a part of Dakota crew. Competitive people might be a little hesitant to go out of their way to give you proprietary information, but you can't be afraid to ask. They'll either say yes, ignore you, or say no. One of those is ideal and the other 2 aren't world-ending, so you have to keep that in mind. Just put yourself out there to ask somebody. Business owners not in your market are probably more willing to help. I worked a lot with other coffee companies. I got in touch through the SCORE program with Dan Hofflin, who ran Sun Butter, and he was great for me and is still a resource that I'm using, but not competitive, obviously, in our market. Same general group, obviously, going in the grocery stores with the consumer packaged goods. I think we're all fighting the same fight, and we're all equally confused. There's a lot of things that I don't know, but sometimes you see this portrayal of other business owners that like everything's polished and perfect and we know what we're doing, and I don't think that's the case all the time. Final point, just pay it forward if someone comes to you for help, if you've been helped somewhere along the way. I benefited a lot from people being very willing to reach out and talk to me and to respond to questions, and I plan to do that. Same thing if people come to me in the future. Paying was the big problem the entire time. We're finding supply chain for packaging. I had all of our ingredients. I knew where to get those. We started on Amazon. Not only not user-friendly, but they were not cost-effective, but we didn't know any better, and we didn't really care. We just needed to get stuff out the door. And honestly, it got to the point where we were buying so many that Jeff Bezos shut us down. They thought we were wholesaling them off of him, purchasing them on Amazon and selling them on a second party site. So we couldn't buy those bottles anymore. Had to figure it out and moved to mason jars, where the only force stronger than Jeff Bezos is grandmas during canning season. And we could not find a single mason jar in the FM area during that period of time in the fall, which was also not fun. Again, just this figured out aspect is prominent through our story. We switched to plastic bottles from an online supplier, which was great until 2022 came around, and in August, for 3 months that year, we couldn't find just the little plastic tip that went on the end of our bottles, and we went 3 months without moving a single bottle to our wholesale clients, which was almost to the detriment of our company. I learned my lesson. Again, like I said, the hammer of life hit me over the head and said, you need to find something more stable. Thankfully, we're now at the point where we can get everything we need to produce an order in 3 to 5 days. I was talking to somebody who I see as a mentor, very prominent in the CPG world. He said, from PO to fulfillment, industry standard is 21 days. So don't put that pressure on yourself that it has to be super fast, churn and burn, but know that there is a window of kind of expectation of what people want when they're buying from you. And now thankfully I can foster our growth. I can say, hey, do we have things on hand? Can I get them fast enough if we wanted to add 50 new accounts this month? I can do that. And it makes it easier to project and grow my business. So my biggest piece of advice in this is never stop allocating time to finding a better source for your products. Obviously, it's an economies of scale conversation as well. You're buying things at a larger quantity. They're going to be cheaper. Like we said, the whole point is to make money in this process. So increasing profit margin while keeping quality high is the biggest thing that I really hammered home in the last 2 years. If you're looking for cheaper packaging options, I get reached out to probably 2 or 3 times a day by people on LinkedIn and who find my email. So I'm happy to point you in the right direction if you reach out after. I can send you some of those salesman's leads that I get every day. Just some closing thoughts, random pieces of advice that really fit in the 4. I think something that really separates us from who I view as our competition is our marketing. It's all organic. I think we've spent maybe $500 to $1,000 in marketing in our 4 years of business on traditional media. That's great and it has its place, but right now I'm in the market, and I imagine a lot of people in this room are as well, in the point of time where you need revenue generation instead of brand building generation. And now they kind of go hand in hand, but if you're not spending anything on it, anything that comes from that is revenue generation. I've been reached out to sponsorships for like golf tournaments and stuff like that, NDSU football, and it's like, is that price tag worth it to me right now? I don't think so. Hopefully it will be one day. So you have to market yourself along with your products and services. People like to know who they're supporting, and at the end of the day, for us, that's why Pride of Dakota is huge, is they can taste it right in front of us. They know what it tastes like before they're purchasing, but otherwise they're just like, hey, these guys are goofy on Facebook, let me buy this, it has a funny name, you know? So being authentic and letting that shine through, sometimes just a candid update photo if you're in the kitchen or something, or doing a delivery, will do more for you than a polished product picture. I know, I basically market the same way I respond to being marketed to, which is a good strategy. What gets me to stop on my Instagram feed? What gets me to stop on Facebook? And it's certainly not a picture of barbecue sauce. So we've adapted our marketing that way. When it comes to social media, do not let perfection be the enemy of action. Just get something out. I get paralyzed a bunch of like, well, what time should I post this? What should the caption be? What do I need to do with this? Don't, just get it up, and people will either respond to it or they won't. And a non-response is a response on social media. Other parts, I don't know what stage of business everybody else is in, but I used to panic a lot that I was running out of time. Don't be in a rush. I think you have more time than you think. The growth that you foster will happen naturally. As long as you take advantage of the opportunities that come to you, then the growth will happen. But if you force it, it probably wasn't meant to be anyway. And that opportunity will probably come farther down the road. We get a lot of our wholesale business, retailers reaching out just because of word of mouth and brand recognition. I've done very little outside selling, but that's just because we've been in business for 4 years instead of the first. This one's hard for me, and I know business owners are all kind of wired the same way. Asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you smart. Let the people who want to help do so if you need it. I think sometimes we discredit ourselves I'm speaking for myself generally. If somebody else is helping me or does something along the way, it feels like I'm discrediting my own work, or that I didn't get to the point that I needed to. But that caused a lot of 48-hour stretches with no sleep and things that were just detrimental to my business anyway. So take the help if it's there, and you need it. That's the bigger thing. Get everybody who reaches out, wants to be part of something cool that's starting up here. I don't really need it right now, but if it comes time, I will definitely do that. I'm very thankful for our chain accounts. They've been huge for us in growing as far as Hornbachers and Coborns and things like that, Home of Economy, these bigger chains. But if I could recommend one thing in the sales that way, as far as your strategy, grow through independent retailers as much as possible. They're, for the most part, easier to deal with, but they're the backbone of our business while we were growing. Obviously, the POs are larger through bigger chains, but those $150, $200, $250 accounts that have monthly reoccurring orders will keep you afloat longer than you think they will if you just stack those on top of each other. And I also think it's important to support the mom and pops. They're community builders, and they're incredibly important to the areas surrounding them, as well as obviously that's what they're doing to keep a roof over their head. So if you can support each other, do that. Be calculated and cautious, but jump when it's time. One of my favorite quotes is from General George Patton. He said, "A good plan executed violently today is better than a perfect plan executed tomorrow." So don't just sit on your hands waiting for the perfect answer to come. Just go do something, and I think that'll go farther and starts more momentum than a lot of people think it will. It's not going to be streamlined. There will be mistakes and late nights, but if you believe in what you're doing, you have to fight for it. That was hard for me because I was like, why is this so hard? That's just the nature of the game. And I think this, being able to relate to other people that are doing it has been huge for me. A lot of us, again, speaking for myself, I put the horse blinders on, and it's just me feeling this feeling, or it's just me going. It's not the case. Everybody's going to fight through it. So it goes back to the help part. Even if you just need to vent to somebody, go do that. I think the best piece of advice I ever received when we first started was from Greg Kemple. I imagine everybody here.
Poor thing.
You're telling me.
Get that advice.
I'm very thankful for Greg. He did a lot for us when we first started. He was one of our first retail vendors. But he just sat me and my dad down. He's like, don't be afraid to charge for your product. I think that's what I ran into a lot of, this feeling of guilt. You're not taking people's money. You're providing them a good or service. When we first started selling online, we had almost twice as much sauce in a bottle. We had a bigger bottle, and we're charging $6 for it. We went down to a 15-ounce bottle, charged 10, and then doubled our units sold at Pride of Dakota. If people think it's worth it, they're going to pay for it. And then if you're selling wholesale, I ran into it too, of promotions and things like this, or am I nickel and diming these people? If they're selling your product, it's an investment. They're making money on it too. You're not screwing anybody over. You just have to make sure you're protecting your own business and your pricing. So price accordingly. Last piece of advice is get a bookkeeper. I am horrible. Again, I'm just hammering this home. The math part is not good for me, and the accounting numbers are the language of business. Can speak to your health, and it just makes making informed decisions a lot easier when you can look down at solid numbers and say, hey, this is where we're going, this is what we need to do, this is what's happening, here's what we need to cut. And if you're anything like me, I don't have the time or the wherewithal to sit down and run that kind of bookkeeping info. So have someone do it for you if you're like me. That's all I really have. I just wanted to reiterate, I'm happy to pay forward any advice I can give. I'm not standing here as some sort of authority, but I have learned a lot cutting my teeth in the 3 years doing this full time. Katie has my contact info, and it's all on our social media, so if you need any help, please reach out.